Dear Sandy Hook promises. Dear Sandy Hook promise. I would do anything to stop another school shooting, but not be collusion's worse with all, was even worse involved with Sandy Hook campus's names further involved, and with your syntax regarding people exhibiting warning signs, the intelligence community at the same time with foreign ones, and with overt criminal enterprises and private ones in the news. There have been identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences, and then when the people react to it, they re, to things, they're changing and faking the value of it. Increasingly, they have roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the names at the courts, forging and switching names. There was also all concentrated medical corruption with forging names, switching names, and tactically delusions raw too. Many people at Hartford Hospital are involved with criminally foreign influenced uses of thought with this too, and all kinds of legal scams there, and criminal enterprises next to them through time. Also with the Tomorrow's Market and involved with home break-ins relative in my area and different areas, and people associated with that, and people like with judges and prosecutors, and next to the state judicial branch offices. Increasingly, are people involved with various natures of predicate acts, wire crime acts, and methods that are also just they change in the form of them just faking and changing recorded reality. Like at the Weathersfield police station, with a Mendez brother is one of the ones with police forms in Weathersfield Police, intercities and intra-cities and inter-campuses and intra-campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and falsified police reports, and police refusing to identify themselves legitimately, attaching people to fake conversations with them. They never had a word of conversation with them in their life. They stole a sentence I said to my friend and put it as it pretended I was in a conversation with a Mendez police brother. Also, before that, there let's say more than one falsified police report for the more than one arrest. For each arrest too. Then they do all kinds of things. God knows what's in the databases. I know it's criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions rot, but also collusion slash S. And they're also relying about what they think when people about what people use their names because they're leaving out the other countries involved at the same time. Also is hyper evidential, which also can be used to show that they've been, they're hiding behind how they've had since they were kids, roles with intelligence families and foreign ones, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time. On social media with them too, the Facebook page of the Weathersfield Police has people with the name Joshua Schumack involved with all kinds of legal corruption, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and involved with sexual offenders of kids in my area, with people with the intelligence community, involved with some KKK, black theme, Confederate flag theme, Jewish theme, other religious theme, the different names next to a religious spot that is a different religion now than it was before. I'm Route 3. Involved with this Robert Rodriguez, who brought up the principal child abusers campus to me. Also, he confessed there's the name Scalora involved with that. He's also involved with planting evidences on all sides of my house with people tied to that. From other areas they've been planting with people with the police, people that put falsified police reports with the police when they're kids, collusion slash S, at the same time with their educators, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and people from off the campuses telling them to put fake things they don't even know about. That's all kind of scams they're putting in the databases tied to little tricks they do. Debbie Gold pretended I had conversations with her, but by one time she made an exception by yelling at me all these things, screaming all these things. After already I was already observing there were already other criminally foreign influence uses of kids with the intelligence community on my street involved with her, involved with a whole bunch of police departments, people with the name O'Brien. And then, and this is before a Collusion family moved in with and rolls with that. See, these are people next to the state corrections offices since before they moved here into a house where that is reportedly associated with intimate ties to a former police chief. Now, these people are involved with all kinds of natures of predicate acts with people from other areas that I don't know all the names of. Joshua Julian is one of the ones on the Facebook page of the principal child defender with some KKK black team, Confederate flag team. Mark Violet recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there's a Joshua Julian with the Weathersfield Police and some military police at UConn and at Central Connecticut State University, involved with a Justin Klevinskis too, and a whole bunch of other people all along Route 175 who have been identity theft, fraud, slanders, and acting with to have other people take pictures and make things look real. I had nothing to do with Mark Carone and Kevin Carone next to a house of a Potter, a Thomas Potter, and he reportedly has a daughter, apparently, or a mother and daughter with the name Potter, involved with a Michael Emmett too, with digital crimes, with the principal upskirt nature, and the Weathersfield Police changing digital evidences, and then with Hotmail, Weathersfield Police and the FBI have Hotmail, where they're taking away, and other police forms are involved, and CIA. They have all the names of the countries in the news involved with them next to the campuses. Increasingly involved with use of corners, use slash S of corners. They don't even realize there are proofs because, in other words, also relative to the Black KKK, or the revelations here. In other words, they won't get on paper. They're forging names and switching names and making confessions. Weathersfield Police, like for example, they've been every interaction they ever had with me that was real. They have it faked with the fake conversations. I never had went down to the police station at all as a kid, and when I was arrested, I had no conversation with them there. In other words, the guy looked. They were going to try to pretend he forgot and left me in a car with the running car with the garage door down, or he was told to do that to scare me, like he was going to asphyxiate me at the Weathersfield Police Station. They also have digital crimes with sending out warrants, where Whiting Forensics increasingly has roles with child offenders, leaders of the kids, years apart, and other natures of organized crimes and crimes at crime scenes with patients and people associated with them were at collusions. Also with Sandy Hook as a prison in Sandy Hook, they had roles with the serial killer's body dumping spot, increasingly involved with a whole bunch of people tied to the people that grew up near me, involved with the Weathersfield Police forging and switching names and making the confession tied to the name Cololo and Demoro and and Phil Cololo per Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics. Phil and others that have he has collusions with digital crimes also with the Whiting Forensics with a Joshua Julian and a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital involved with the Mark Violet, Joshua Julian, and a Joshua Stryker too at Trinity College, involved also with a Darth Vader and how they how they have the police department on it and off the campus. Increasingly too, Quinnipiac. I forgot to Fred Grisey is one of the ones involved with the family members of of probate court judges and superior court judges and people associated with Connecticut District Court who have a Fred Grisey also involved, have town lines like involved with the corrections offices, involved with multiple police departments with identity thefts and frauds with other countries and overt criminal enterprises, even if they are intelligence families. And these are increasingly people with the like sociology, psychiatry, and ones with badges tied to the World Trade Center. Fred Grisey is also involved with, I believe it's in Staten Island, but in other words, increasingly, I don't know the people tied, but he's got judges and prosecutors involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids, identity thefts, frauds, public school kids involved with putting fake evidences at private. I mean, private school kids involved with putting fake evidences at and next to public school kids with people at the corrections offices, involved at the town lines too, with military, criminally and foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence, involved with some KKK, black theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, inter and intracultural, and inter and intra campuses. But after already have been sustained for since semi ancient times, collusion slash estimate no one wanted at all locations slash s everywhere the species body is. The nature of debate, the nature of what they call peace, contains quality aspects in nature that are evidences. See, people don't know how to speak proper, and like with things like war. In other words, left out about the blood revolution. They want to say, in other words, they want to have nature debate. Oh, you don't know this, you don't know that. In other words, if you don't know that and how James Madison's plan was used by our founders, and then George Washington agreed to use it, you don't know American history. Other is taught for American history, but they don't know American history. The experts are criminally foreign influence, the names of the people of the sciences. So they have wire crime acts and methods that are apart with how they have left this so long. And I don't know the Debbie Gold. Increasingly, her father, a former Mayor Gold, and other mayors are increasingly involved with the names like Tomorrow, involved with the Saudi attackers, with people named Scalora and Central Connecticut State University, with the business department, and with all kinds of different natures of organized crimes associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and Detective Samuda, involved with the Black KKK, Latino themed, and falsified police reports, and predicate acts roles, and roles with the types of police forms that change digital evidences and fake them, including to judges like Judge Napolitano. So they should fear God now, and they should get them on paper real fast. And I want a response for the rest of the recorded credible threats and demonstrations and confessions about things on the kids. And you have parents that came forward with their kids, including in the news, that planted fake evidences as collusions. They're using the different. There are people with the intelligence named what do you call it? O'Neill. I don't even know her name. They're putting their kids, pretending passions and emotions to defend her now. She's involved with, including the people that pretend they knew me in the past with the judges that were planting evidences, like with the one's name, um, what's his name? I forgot the name. But all kinds of fake news they put, news predicate acts, and they're confessing and demonstrating it has something to do with the roles with the fire department's families, and as campuses know, but also the campuses that train them, and the ones at and next to Harper's Hospital. Harper Hospital is a campus there, is a campus. Hospitals are campuses, but they have an Institute of Living founded on their campus in 1822. And it's still involved with all kinds of organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, with prosecutors and judges, concentrated corruption at next to the state judicial branch offices. The Wethersfield police have wire crime acts and methods and predicate acts and identity thefts, frauds, and slanders with Wethersfield Pizza House, and more people involved with the Board of Education, and with a Brian Bonin all along Route 3 with other countries, and people involved with the name Tomorrow with the FBI and other countries, and the World Trade Center attack, and their roles with WFSB, which is on Elm Street up there, also with people on Elm Street in Wethersfield. Recorded planting evidences since I was a kid, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. They try to plant fake exceptions. Has something to do with a whole bunch of people at Trinity College and next to it, and at Trinity, at Central Connecticut State University and next to it, are people involved who planting evidences at and around my house since I was a kid, with people increasingly involved with falsified police reports, with Connecticut's police departments, but with Wethersfield Police Department specifically, refusing to identify themselves legitimately, increasingly as collusions with people from other areas, and with more recent, and 1 year home breaking years ago, where also there were wire crime acts and roles, and other natures of predicate acts involved, also with the same corner at Fairlane and Carriage Hill Drive. And a guy who said he was the partner of Kevin Dillon is increasingly involved with Washington D.C. people and intelligence, foreign and domestic, involved with the two speech class teachers I had. I never had a personal conversation with them, but they have roles with all kinds of medical corruption and judges and prosecutors involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, and with the names involved at the spots next to the state capitol is another thing that concentrates that connects them. In other words, in other words, these are people. There's a method, like just with which trials are about. If you explain what witch trials are about, you don't leave out what simultaneous those crazy laws against everyone, and slavery even against like overtly with against black and white, what nature's communicated to our eyes. You know, entrenched northern colonies and southern before our founders were born. People want to change that and then speak about what wars are about anyway. Then they say, oh, that's money. It's money. All we have to do is focus on what is true always. So there are wire crime acts and methods, and there are a whole bunch of intelligence people at Hartford Hospital involved with the name Smith and Collusion with this Kevin Dillon and Anna Dillon and demonstrably a Thomas Dillon per Facebook too. Facebook has the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page involved with rape threats and involved with planting evidences with the news, with the police forms, intercities involved, with the names planting evidences on my streets through time, and from their locations trying to plant fake exceptions and leaving out and measuring and sensing for left out their roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and and people that have been that don't even know others. They just know that they had roles putting fake things in databases, and with use/s of that roles. The databases had a relativity to ourselves with the communications of our founders, but with the communications of nature too, regarding how this breaching method was entrenched before America's founders were born, and with the design of the suburbs, while slavery was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies tactical area, from what you have learned in schools, because the schools are using books that are measured and maintained for self-evaluated roles, measured and maintained, communicating other, like for example, regarding how a human factor nature breaching method was a subject of scientific value inside the communications of America's founders, who did not have free speech, and they declassified us. They declassified us for us to understand this. How they didn't have free speech. That's in other words, there was slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. Obviously, there's no free speech. Oh, because that's because money. We have still morons. And then the nature of debate. Oh, you know more than a teacher. This was employed by the breaching method. All natures of division, all natures of unity, as criminal insidiousness, natures of acceptation syntactically to keep this from discernment, the identity of relativity to ourselves of the breaching method, for example. And its identity is relativity to positive and negative. Needing to hide behind that the same way. Insidious natures of positive and negative treatments, identities of relativity, and to ourselves. See, but we have sciences in the words of science, the word science as a value. And we have the names of the sciences, therefore the names of the people of the sciences more and more incapable of affording discern how nature wants and shows our short words to be with convictions, let alone with convictions with blame. It shows us nature itself and our founders did not to leave blame, not to show blame, use truths, leaving out the breaching method. A breaching method had consumed countries A through Z, incapable of defending any instant or name or reality without blaming other things, others, ourselves. and responses to things that it caused and maintains, like the World Trade Center attack. There are recorded proofs that the World Trade Center attack was his effect used to keep this to maintain this effective method still upon us, clearer than day upon all locations slash s, and even just concentrated at New York City, ever wonder how anyone got away so long with pretending they couldn't realize? When we see the rap videos and the people in the background with the huge people stacked upon them and next to them, and not one of them could grow a thing. The suburbs are tactically good natured. Everyone just mows the lawn, and there's not even worms there anymore. And worms used to be a function for the fresh water when the rain comes, and all the bugs are no longer on the surface of the water. And they just walk into bodies of water and even puddles in the rain. And birds too. When in the rain, there are less bugs that can be found by birds. In other words, we're not paying attention to how nature communicates with us and with positive and negative. Otherwise, if we had, we would have discerned the difference between criminal and insidiousness natures of positive, like peace. There's a difference between criminal and insidious natures of peace and hyper peace. Everyone, how long are we going to sit behind people forcing that all we hear is people putting excuses like true use for life, even money. In other words, there's a reason that resources and money and will are different words. You know how many people would help. I don't know. So we have to if we met the trap and the bottom, and we do it as a world too, as a human species body of individual bodies that knows that all differences that are negative have been generated because we are systems tactical ulterior from the hyper difference that is generating all differences. And it's way that is showing us how it's also positive onto itself additionally. And it will give us these means out of nowhere. But rather than do that, we ignore that. But change people's words. So all along Route 175, there are people with the name Kerr with a whole bunch of guns in their house. And they have a whole bunch of different natures of organized crimes rule with proven child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. For example, and with the officer Jerry Miller, who has been planting evidences on the side of my house with Facebook, with them, and with other people, and the Joshua Julian on the Facebook page of the principal child abuser. Note with some KKK theme, Confederate flag theme, and Black and Latino themed roles, falsifying police reports, and refusing still to give me a response. And they're spreading lies and rumors through the kids and cover-ups of having done that since they were kids. As the rules with the intelligence families, the difference of their criminal involvements, or the work criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists, all the different countries involved with the campuses they brought involved with this, the shipping locations. Then, in other words, on a mass scale, the only reason, many ways, the breaching method assigned definitions of the right to lie and directions to hide things. You guys change it, all real directions to right to lie. And you're leaking now, too. So that's why we need to get them on paper, one name and sequence. And stop playing games with victims. They have victims advocates involved with names at next to the state capitol through time. A whole bunch of people involved with the microviolet. In other words, and a John Maiano. Also, people with the name DeMauro. I never saw DeMauro down there. Or I don't even think I saw Ray Cole down there. I don't know if he was there one time. I don't know how anything to do with that at that club there. It was a Sharkies. I don't know the Sharkies. I wouldn't want anyone to get killed. Might have been murdered, a Sharky, with the fire. Fox Connecticut News has roles with names intelligence next to them, involved with all kinds of social security, with foreign and domestic doctors. There's scams, all kinds of scams. They're just forging names, switching names, and delusions rot black pupils. How come no one paid attention to how the experts on reason have left out how we have black people's rights of eyes? When you hear them speak, we could examine their delusions in their criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature being haven't been used remotely criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence relative to where and to how other things, others, ourselves are blamed for right where our founders communicated to blame the breaching method too. And nature itself shows us a human fact, human nature breaching method is one of the things true always that the summary was the sum of those laws that had been leveraged against every single person, including our founders, sickly distinctly. In other words, so please, Sandy Hook promises. I see you guys with a ad and syntax regarding warning signs. You guys are preventing kids. You guys have there are kids. So you have the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other agencies, foreign and domestic military, people with the name O'Brien, are on my street in Weathersfield, Connecticut, through time, at intercities and intra-campuses. Plant roles also at corners of streets. They have something to do with the corners of streets in their schools, planting federal evidence as crimes. Where and how that it's also then they have to hide out years later. It's like their use of the ground locations is like illusions and like their use of differences. In the past, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rock, collusion / yes. They have to hide that now in the future. They're proofs to this is why there are problems with borders at these big countries that have all these means and means to communicate with everyone. You know, imagine the executive orders a president / chief could pull off if the entire country and the entire species body is with the same plan together to give their individual leaders names and individuals of the species body of individuals the ability to force the quality of fact human nature that reveals means out of nowhere. Evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, especially including where in some ways where we are fact human nature could create more than anything. You know, evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. You know, cost reductions and quality way beyond what any thing could be afforded any other way, even by the wealthiest. In other words, it is a landscape theater that came from some ancient times. It employed other things, others, ourselves, blamed formally for things that it forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to unfold, to cause that, to be self-valued. And without anyone realizing this propagated more and more. People more and more incapable of affording discern how nature has assigned our short words to be valued. See, we have been systems tactical tear from this hyper-native pure. This is Roger Waters, in other words. No one knows how to speak where people are getting killed and got killed. Exactly the way the breaching method that has our campuses A through Z, at countries A through Z too. Clearer than day. Suits and ties, counters, exceptions. There are different rackets roles. Different racketeering worse than war crimes is discernible relative just to how black people's rights of eyes are left out. And delusions are discernible. And they can be healed. Not one that shield. In other words, we have to use all the reasons we need to blame each other. Like we know that Russians and Americans kill each other and torture each other and point nuclear weapons at each other. Now, hypersonic weapons. We know that, Russians, Ukraine. The whole time, everyone blamed the other things others are solving, even when correctly, but what caused the world wars? Demonstrably, since before modern religious messengers were born, people started defending the sciences abridged as collusion/S more and more with all locations, areas, and states. Formal conviction natures, timed collusions with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and exceptions in exception nature roles, and or everyone roles sentencing for the breaching method. Then when you use the short words proper. So WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with other about the World Trade Center attack. When I caught them with various natures of digital crimes with kids and predicate acts with them, and with some of the parents and kids at the same time, some of them intelligence too, at the same time with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Many of them are just quoting other fake things in databases and what they were influenced to say. See, they're not supposed to do that and force the nature of debate because you guys are speaking groupthink now too. Because you attached me to fake conversations also through the news with the Wethersfield police. Also, where they're using all natures of investigators remotely criminally foreign influenced. There are also more women and men involved with digital crimes with kids, including sexual and medical, involved at New Britain Superior Court, including with a guy who pulled me over right after I was taking a right-hand turn on a sharper than 45-degree angle where you have to speed up to get up to the speed limit at the end of Hangdog Lane, where it touches Route 3, which conjunctive to Route 3. See, in other words, all along Route 3, all along Hangdog Lane, our people were influenced to spread fake things about me and some of them to act fake things about me. And they will tell you this in sequence shifts. But you have to ask them right. And people tied to them with Wethersfield Police Department also is influenced to also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're influenced to pretend it's police departments and police forms are influenced to pretend it's personal. When we note them predicate acts, collusions with people with violence in our areas, and with wire crime acts and methods with them that show also their roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes regarding what is typed digitally. See, that changes it. So Wethersfield police have been stacking falsified police reports with a Bob Chase, with a Phil Collusion, and other police forms that would have arrays of falsified police reports rolls with the same arrests, also used to force collusions at crime scenes. So a Phil Collusion was further involved with the principal upskirt nature, who in digital crime and wire crimes with retired police chiefs from Wethersfield with the same house. And the police chief's upskirt nature said that the principal upskirt nature, a principal being, but in other words, the principal child abuser, because he was involved with other natures of organized crimes and wire crimes and digital crimes. He confessed with others. There's a Mike Levine involved. These are also people involved with the World Trade Center attack and with the different countries. Mike Levine demonstrated non-verbally. He has roles with the side of I never had a verbal conversation in my life. He has roles with intelligence families that are involved with child abusers when I was a kid, first forced, and then the program, and then ones when I'm an adult. And there were time use/S of those people involved with that too, who were involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and roles with people that never had classes together, putting fake ties to people, and the uses of corners of buildings. I figured out what they're doing. In other words, because there are remote uses of all sides of criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, their family members, and the same thing with the courts, at the same time kept needing to hide live progressions after they put the same sequence shifts, the same delusions, the same criminally foreign influence fact shipping nature quality aspects nature. Then they're shown to be styles, pretending just because something's they're using knowledge of good and evil to get over on correlation nature and which is sequence nature true. In other words, so Sandy Hook promises increasingly a whole bunch of people at the Connecticut and next to the Connecticut Capitol. They have rules with your syntax regarding and your advertisements. And because I bet, and with you guys preventing me a response, I with this Alex Jones too. There are FBI too with their Facebook page involved. Also with the New Britain Superior Court, they have their Facebook page involved with some KKK, Black themed, Confederate flag themed, Latino themed, and medical families involved with this Yagman family too. Ugh. No, this Yagman family is also one of the ones recorded confessed, and with the what's his name? A Phil Close on 2-Hour Highway. Also further with people involved with the whiting forensics and medical corruption with kids through time. And identify fraud slanders with judges and prosecutors putting fake news in databases with them in foreign countries. And their educators. Good morning from London. How are you? I was just watching Roger Waters, and apparently he had a father who died when he was really young. I could see when these kids lose their fathers young. There's a fake integrity at locations, areas, and states that is kept needing to pretend other and shown how to pretend other at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. In other words, we have words proper, and we have things that nature shows us. So when they speak about diplomacy or war or peace, they leave out what we have black people's whites of eyes. We have means to discern that the people that are speaking with convictions and they can't defend that and afford to discern the actual value of their speech. But everyone's missing this because it's the same way distinctly with the news too. There are whole wire crime acts and methods. People are using whatever to make things pretend that to appear to be debatable that are not. And the way they get away with it, there are proofs it's not just in America, but in other countries too. They're putting fake things in databases each year as predicate acts rolls, as illusions planting rolls. That is timed collusions with a breaching method that shows them how to do this. Because a breaching method knew that nature would continually demonstrate to the names at A through Z countries. They need to counter the worst thing behind the worst natures of criminal insidiousness, like the worst, like with the worst problems on countries that are criminally foreign influenced. And but they're like, it's like juxtaposed with the people like, oh, it's about the borders and things like that. So they never get down to it. Especially like at how they have psychiatry mixed with the three branches of government, and ones who have badges, and ones with gavels putting fake things in databases. Then they use their differences, rackets, criminally foreign influence, readings of statutes and precedents, and exceptions in exception nature, read tactically ulterior from how nature does. Then the breaching method shows them they need to hide it there more and more, and at all other locations. Right back as collusion with all locations /S. Categorically, this breaching method had perfected this from some ancient times since before modern religious messengers were born. Also without free speech. also with only a limited cipher slash deciphered, already deciphered for us. The beginning of the Old Testament and the beginning of the Quran, they both come with parts that were written with consciousness, knowing as is actually recorded. The people that defend the passions within emotions, the religions, the people that counter them with passions and emotions, and people with exceptions, there have been collusions with each other using passions and emotions, for example, is different when you're fighting about what is true always. And also, in other words, there were three parts of time that we know are true. We know there's an extent to the past that we know about. And we know there's a part before that we don't know about. And we know there's a part before that we never know about. And the same thing now active. We know there's a part we know about. We know there's a part we don't know about, but we could learn more about it. And we know there's an active group reality's truth that we'll never know, even altogether. And there's a part, you know, that is to come, like the value of the seasons, even if they never got here. Their value we know is here now. But we are also shown a hyper invisible but still discernible identity of the hyper simultaneous. That again, that the same one that is not the other species bodies is not our own, but it is anyway. So people want to defend theater when they're writing, and then they want to read their thing, like Mr. Rogers. Partially is because he never had a father. In other words, but you can't bring theater here. You have to stay on the predicate acts with facts. You can't leave out the black to get it right. One can't leave out the black people's whites of eyes and the human fact human nature breaching method that was entrenched. Northern colonies and southern colonies in America, for example, before America's founders were born. And it was reported that the people in England cheered us because they were tortured, extorted, enslaved already by the same method that was entrenched right through the foundings there, too. That's why how England doesn't remember the history of English properly. So in other words, then people want to debate when this guy's bad, and then the election, numbers, all the sides are natures and styles of logic that won't let actual predicate acts be discussed, and or it even noted where and how clearer than day. And one's honest, they're going to be they're no true inside the communications of our founders. A scientific human fact, human nature breaching method is a scientific value, as that which was the value of those crazy laws that tortured, extorted, and enslaved people, sickly distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies, with slavery, black slavery in northern colonies, sickly distinctly though too. That difference too was used to measure and maintain how sickly non-distinctly was is left out. Because the breaching method maintained internationally monitored conversations and natures of peace talking and syntax and names uses roles that it could measure and maintain remote uses of, regardless if they're wealthy or what. And you can have them use that as its motivation, or it's those people's guilt. It's those people's greed. It's that hide behind that. Clearer than day, black peoples. Hibernated pure. It is time. So please, Mr. Rogers, before the Ukraine war, before the war and killing before the Ukraine conflagration, which also murders and kills people, conflagrations. See, the predicate acts with facts method /S is with the problem at locations every stage A through Z. That's why how the suburbs in America from northern colonies and southern colonies were designed before America's founders were born, apart with the torture and as a torture extortion, fact, human nature, slavery rules. And as a theater, not everyone not realizing the more and more, they realize too to an extent, but more and more they're in value nature systems, tactical terror from natures. The only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. If the self value rolls with the breaching methods employment of criminal insidiousness natures, of means to cause positive value nature progressions and acts and natures, that leads to increasingly to hide behind other apparent motivations, needs, interests, and names and values to blame because it rolls with all this. A singular scientific value as a human fact treatment nature breaching method. In other words, and that's why the people of England, even though we went to war with them, they were cheering because they were also the possession of those internationally monitored conversations. And their natures of defense were also reliant upon natures of alliances and enemies used effectively by the breaching method, not A through Z, to keep self-value roles with communicating other, where and how nature communicates through and uses, but it needs to use how, where, and how we are a species body of individual bodies, with all group differences, plural, being generated by as its own. Otherwise, it shows us the means to discern when we are not using its system and its answers, and where and how, and when we have them replaced. We have black people's whites of eyes this left out. Those answers are replaced. There are revelations here. It's not just that. It's not just that we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time in the body of all space slash existence itself is showing us about similarity, difference. The same thing, in other words, tactical terror from how the formal suits of ties, counters, and exceptions could afford to have discerned, could afford to be spoke, let alone to protract short words. It's that serious. That's why no one could get American history right, even though nature itself is communicating what our founders did. That's why there are self-value roles, changing and faking the words of everyone, including leaders, no matter how powerful they get, in any grouping of humanity that doesn't address this. They're going to be any individual, because it takes an individual to defend the order of the finite. Nature shows us this. So we could have so much fun with our leaders if we're all playing the same species body plan. We could show them things and help them by showing the people of their country too that it's possible by just starting with our own video about it. We could do a human species body video, and we just start training individually, grouped, and more all together. We put down temporary means designed to cause temporary / lasting positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures every single place at once where the human species body is, otherwise we sense. And use that to go do it even better way. Nature shows us that they won't, in other words, we don't have security out of our countries relative to this. They can't make the proper nature debate. They can debate economics and with attrition, with relative economics relative to attrition, or their natures of peace. This breaching method measures and maintains that. There has never been the Constitution unabridged and valued properly. Why and how we have rights are too numerous to have to list them. The problem is only concentrated with psychiatry's roles. But it's positive too, because we could there are more scams tied to the courts and interbranch with the names with psychiatry and databases. Then there are with like a few dozen people. Then there are streets and houses on the streets, like in Hartford, Connecticut. Harvard Hospital's Institute of Living has so many people involved with federal evidences crimes on my street and at the campuses I went, as ones involved with World Trade Center predicate acts with WFSB and with people involved with Sandy Hook campuses with child abusers of kids and people involved with guns crimes, criminal enterprises, private ones. More bug spray, um, smoke, different credible threats on me. They have their patients and criminals and family members of campuses run into Hartford Hospital, like and campuses where they have mental evaluations of people, or where there's fights spill over, and they change and fake what everyone says to screen the roles with the hyper foreign at countries A through Z. And it hides behind it their roles with a whole bunch of different countries with the same ones involved. And then they pretend that we're speaking about, they keep everyone only capable of perceiving it as if we're knocking the other countries. We have to get through this. It's forcing us to a quality of faction nature that can't defend itself and afford to be, let alone to protract short words with by nature's identity itself correctly. In other words, these kids, they know. In other words, some ways better, but some ways we better. In other words, we're supposed to appreciate how worms are, how there's a function, how the birds and everything, there's a system. We're not supposed to just wipe it away. That's a serious thing where there are hardly any worms anymore. Or what about deserts? There are proofs that deserts were created. Even if it's not true, it's more probable and practical than what is convicted through history and theorized. In other words, that they took down a mountain in what is now Mexico and in America to take away the river, to tactically nature it per how they sustained names A through Z, blaming A through Z for things it forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, only allowed, fathomed, only allowed, capable of blaming other things other themselves, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs. Everyone rolls with that, otherwise they would sense for itself. That was the sum value of those laws in the database's identity of relativity / relativities to ourselves as the human volume science. Since before modern religious messengers were born. The republic for which we stand and its campus marcia system as nature's, it worked with exceptions in exception nature because nature shows it too. There are proofs. But we can't deal with things that are recorded true always because there are still collusions covering that up and self-value roles with it. At countries A through Z, there's a theater integrity. There's theater uses of the names of differences. Then further as identity names. So I please thank you. Please, Sandy Hook, get the Wethersfield police on paper because these are the ones involved at the same time intercities and intra-cities and inter-campuses and intra-campuses, also with names next to the campuses, increasingly with ties, tied by predicate acts relative, and the names involved, and the timing of it. And in other words, I shouldn't have to beg to get them on paper. There's violence involved. In other words, and they're pretend other too. Like with a Phil Collusion and a Bob Chase too, with Whiting Forensics. They have more judges and prosecutors involved with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids and delusions relative. And they have more people that made more confessions about their roles with foreign and domestic. One guy said he was from Mexican Navy, and one guy said that he kept repeating that he was with he's close family with a former Mayor Gold's family, who was increasingly involved with federal evidence is crimes against me. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, too, with people tied to them, sequence shifts, and the sides of park. Increasingly, he's been planting on the sides of park people with them. Predicate acts with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and various natures of federal criminals since before they were caught. And former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members and their neighbors, also involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes with probate court families in the same house, slash S, intercities, collusion, slash S, and with the news, and with other countries, and with criminal enterprises and terrorists. These are people, the same families that were involved with spots next to at the World Trade Center and the court next to the World Trade Center, too, in other words. And WFSB attached me to fake conversations below the World Trade Center. So what they do on a mass scale, there are all kinds of ways they make people raise their voice. Or they try to do it other way, and they just change the fake where people put fake things in databases. And then other people exploit that. And then, and they lock it in where people just forget about things. Vaccines. So please, Sandy Hook, there are more credible threats on kids, and there are more confessions and things that are recorded involved with the principal upskirt nature, involved with the ones with Sandy Hook campuses, intercities, and intra-cities involved. So please get them on paper, one name and sequence. And there are more weapons involved, and even poisons with the same ones. And it's retired police chiefs still, and their intimate ties. People's tied to that. Please.